News Australian with the number of people. Ben Croft, well-renowned marine documentary maker as well, who's certainly been part of this series of television commercials calling for the immediate moratorium on the hunting of endangered dugongs and sea turtles around the Australian coastline. Now, obviously, the WWF, as I mentioned, is calling for $30 million over 5 years to invest in an Indigenous ranger program for communities along the Queensland coast to stop illegal turtle and dugong hunting. Now, we saw this issue in the Northern Territory with the Indigenous rangers working in with, I believe, the Australian Coast Watch as well. Obviously, when we look at the eyes, in fact, of the coastline, Indigenous rangers are in the front line there.
Yeah, I mean, it's all very well for political parties to make these statements about how they're going to approach this issue, but we've called on all parties to look at an additional investment of $30 million over 5 years to invest in getting more Indigenous rangers out there on sea country.
Now, obviously, when we look at the measures to better protect these iconic species from poachers and, I guess, to pursue better opportunities for partnerships with traditional owners, but these statements lack substance until there is, well, I guess you could say, a solid funding commitment in place. And this is what the WWF's WWF has been calling on for some time now.
Yeah, mate, it's all very well for political parties to make these types of statements, but they do lack substance if there's no resources to actually invest in addressing the issue. And we're calling on an investment of $30 million over the next 5 years to actually get traditional owners out on country managing turtle and dugong.
There's all this talk, but I guess many would say probably not enough action in this area.
No, there's not enough action there, and we've got to look at how, because what's happened to date is that a lot of our communities and a lot of our organisations up and down the Great Barrier Reef do have management plans. The only problem with that is that they haven't got the resources to implement the strategies and the actions of those plans. We're working very closely, as you know, with Goodyear and Guriga. I know that both of those organisations do have management plans when it comes to turtles and dugongs, but they require additional investment to actually implement some of those strategies.
Now, this issue, in fact, of protecting dugongs and turtles, obviously, when we look at it from traditional hunting practices, in fact, under the native title here in Queensland, obviously, at the end of the day, we're talking about sustainability and balance, aren't we?
Yeah, and besides we're calling on investment to get rangers out there, we also got to look at, the biology of these species. We want traditional owners and other respective organisations and communities to also be involved in the research and monitoring of these species, roll out and invest in those management plans, because I think it's a very important point that we do have that convergence when it comes to traditional ecological knowledge and Western science.
Obviously, we've seen conservation plans already in place, but to pursue further conservation plans does take more commitment, in fact, and certainly funding in certain areas. Obviously, here in Queensland, with this particular issue, when we look at traditional owner groups, and of course, there's many stakeholders involved in this particular issue, having an all-in, in fact, I guess you could say, an all-in holistic approach to this issue.
Yeah, and a lot of these organisations, they're doing it off their own back. A lot of them are doing the monitoring programs on the weekends, and they're all volunteers. There's no investment there to properly pay these people to do the work. So we're calling on additional investment. We're calling on a more strategic approach and a holistic approach when it comes to research and the monitoring of these species. So what we're asking both political parties is to look at this issue and take it seriously.
Now, obviously, it is a serious issue, and obviously, when we look at WWF, in fact, they've been working in this area for quite a long time. Obviously, from traditional perspectives, with, of course, the hunting of dugong and, of course, turtles. And certainly when it comes to the native title issue, we do know that no cruelty, in fact, act here in, of course, Queensland, basically, when it comes to the likes of cruelty laws in relation to Indigenous hunting.
Yeah, well, WWF, we're not an animal welfare organisation, we're a conservation organisation, but we also respect the great work that other organisations do in that area. But I think it's important also, Lloyd, to look at some other best practice or some other case studies around the country. And I know that both in Western Australia and also in Northern Territory, they do have, they've put some money towards rangers and communities to look after these species, and I think that Queensland could probably have a look at that too. So.
Now, this latest announcement by the LNP here in Queensland, obviously, and it's an issue, but we've spoken about it a number of times. Rather than having a top-down approach, a bottom-up approach would be the best solution.
Yeah, mate, it's all comes from the community. As I said before, a lot of our organisations up and down the coast do have management plans. They're sitting waiting to be invested in so that they can roll out some of those strategies. So, but WWF, we also recognise and respect the native title, obviously, given that that's law. But more importantly, I think it's important that we stop this illegal poaching too. So,
is the moratorium an answer though?
We're not calling on a moratorium. We're just calling on the fact that the governments need to take this issue seriously, and given that Indigenous communities are, they're very well placed to be in being good stewards in providing that stewardship around the issue. So the more money we can get for our communities to put traditional lands back out on sea country, that's a good thing.
Well, Leonard, it's a huge issue, and obviously it's an ongoing issue. It has been for quite some time, but we certainly hope that all parties and stakeholders are all involved in this issue can come together and find a just outcome and a balanced outcome. Yes,
and mate, the issue's not going to go away, because given that I think last time we had a bit of a yarn is that there's a bit of a crisis when it comes to turtles and dugongs washing up on our beaches. Once again, it's been a natural event around the two cyclones that we had. Their habitat in regards to their seabeds have been, a lot of cases completely destroyed. So we've got to look at this issue as in a whole as a community. So.
Well, we sort of look forward into further outcomes in this particular area. Cliff Cobbo, WWF's Conservation and Country Manager. Thanks again.
Thanks, Lloyd.
I'll be back with more straight after news and weather. And don't forget the WWF Australia, the Worldwide Fund for Nature, Australia, and certainly are supporting, in fact, many communities. Back with more shortly. Let the fun be